Okay, so again, thank you everyone for being here. This shiur will be dedicated to my sister, who's right now in labor at the hospital. So, Bezrat Hashem, she should have a very easy birth, and we should have a lot of good news at the end of the shiur. We're going out of Parashat Tazria, which we just read, and in less than, I'm sure everybody is counting, in about 12 days we'll have Pesach, and this year is very special in that regards, that we're reading the Parasha, the B'Yom HaShmini, Parashat Shmini, we're reading it 8 times in the US. In any case, in this week's Wondrous, there's a lot of beautiful things, really beautiful things that we're going to try to get in this time that we have. We're going to start with the basic Tazria. Tazria starts with Isha ki Tazria v'yalda zachar, just like my sister. If a woman conceives and gives birth to a male. And we know that the Tuma and Tahara, the purification process that we read about in the whole Chumash Vayikra is not really practiced these days. So it's, as we spoke about the last couple of shiurim, it's very hard to understand the relevance of these parshiot to us. So some people say it's for the future, some people say it's for learning, but for us Chassidim, that we learn from the Baal Shem Tov and on, we know that there's an inner depth to all these psukim, to every verse that we can contemplate on. We can learn real great things that are relevant to everyone at any point in time. So in this week's Wonders, Rabbi Ginsburg takes it from a couple angles, but we're going to start from the end of the Wonders, where Rabbi Ginsburg brings the Rabbi Levi Yitzchak from Berdichev, the Berdichev Rebbe, and he speaks about the various things that you can learn from this pasuk. So the first thing that he learns is we are all compared to when we look at Hashem, we're all Isha, we're all feminine to the side. We're Hashem's wife in that aspect. And what this pasuk is illustrating to is that when Hashem has mercy on us and he looks at the situation, and even though we're not doing the right things, and even though things are not the way they're supposed to be, he still has mercy, rachamim, and gives us good things. It's one level. It's not as strong. The strongest level is when we ask for it. It doesn't even say when we do the right thing, although that will be in the third explanation. But in the first explanation, it's just about the fact that we ask for it. If we ask for it, it's much stronger. We spoke about this pasuk that we say from Megillat Esther, that v'ikar, something really precious, something really powerful, is when we ask for it, when we as Jews connect to Hashem and ask for mercy, ask for Hashem to be involved, especially with a lot of things that are happening these days. We ask Hashem to be involved. That brings a much higher, much more powerful level of mercy from Hashem, and allows us to be receiving Hashem's good in a very strong way. So that's the first explanation that we can learn from this. And again, the idea is that when we ask for it, what Hashem brings us is much higher, much better. So that's the first explanation. The second explanation that Rabbi Ginsburg brings is how does the Geula come? There's different ideas of either when the Geula. We'll start with when. There's two opinions. One is that the Geula will come in the month of Tishrei, the beginning of the year, in the day of judgment, Rosh Hashanah, and the whole month of judgment of Tishrei. That's when the Geula will come. And the other opinion is that the Geula will come in this month, the month of Nisan. What is so special about this month? It's not the judgment, it's the opposite. It's Hashem revealing himself and redeeming us. That's the Zman Cherutenu, where Hashem took us out of exile and brought us out. The same thing, Hashem will take us out of Galus. And what Rabbi Ginsburg says, and what he shows us based on the Bodhisattva is saying, is that there is a higher level when a much stronger Geula, the redemption is much stronger when it comes in the month of Tishrei. The month of Tishrei, and the month of Tishrei doesn't mean the time of Tishrei. It could come today, but when it comes with a lot of judgment, with a lot of our involvement, whether it's by doing tshuva or by doing maasim tovim, where we do good deeds, or when we daven well, etc. We'll speak more about what we can do, especially in another shiur in this week's Wonders. But when we connect, that's a much higher level than the level of just Hashem saying, okay, it's enough, I'm going to take the Jews out, which is a very high level as well, but not the highest level. The highest level that we learn from this week's parasha is that when Hashem brings us out based on, excuse me one second, and part of cleaning for Pesach, I cleaned the computer today, so it's a little bit out of, okay, so when Hashem brings us out, with us being part of it, it's much stronger. So that's the second explanation. But also the third explanation is more that when Hashem brings us out and has nothing to do with us, it comes with a lot of judgment. What's called the kitrug, which is when okay, I see that there's a 1 second, I'll stop for a second and say that in the chat, they're saying that the advertised time of the class is not accurate. I'm just going to copy this message and send it over to Elazar. I'm hoping that he will deal with it. Sorry, so we'll try to get back and summarize that there's two levels. We'll just say it like this. We'll start the first part, and we're going to say a couple parts to this week's Wonders because there's a lot of things to cover. The first part of this week's Wonders is to say that when we connect, whether it's by davening, by praying to Hashem, or whether it's by doing good deeds, or when Hashem's mercy has to do with us connecting, it's much more powerful. And that is what we learned from the Bodhisattva. And what Rabbi Ginsburg adds to that is the one thing you have to be careful is when you're doing things, when you're doing the right things, when you feel like you're doing the right things, you have to be very careful about thinking of yourself too much. Because if you think too much of yourself, or you feel that you deserve it too much, then you bring upon yourself a different judgment. So that's not good as well. So the best thing is to do what's required of you, but not to think of yourself too highly. Okay, so that's the first part of this week's Wonders. There's a lot more to think about and to look into why specifically we are needed. Meaning, why does Hashem want us to ask? Why does Hashem want us to do good deeds? And why are we needed? And there's a lot of reasons, but at the end of the day, what we learn is that we are needed. That our deeds, our prayers are bringing upon a geula at a much higher level. So that's the first part. Then there's another shiur in this week's Wonders that speaks very nicely, and it connects to Rosh Chodesh. We just had the first of the month of Nisan, but this shiur is about the Rosh Chodesh of Adar, that in the it has to do with every Rosh Chodesh. Every first of the month we say the chapter 104, Kuf Daled in Tehillim, Barchi Nafshi. And it's a beautiful chapter. Actually, my great-grandfather has a song on this chapter. My father plays a beautiful chapter of Barchi Nafshi. And one of the verses in that chapter is that a man goes out to his work, and then it says to do his labor, יצא אדם לפועלו, we'll say it in Hebrew for a second. יצא אדם לפועלו ולעבודתו עד הערב, to his labor until the evening, which is a very interesting pasuk. What is the inner explanation of this pasuk? So there's two opposite translations. And we'll see what we learn from this pasuk is the whole concept of going down in order to come up. So the first explanation is this pasuk is about the neshama. Our neshama, and we spoke about this a couple months ago when Rav Ginsburg was speaking about this whole concept of going down, yeridat tzorech aliyah, in order to go up, to go to a higher level. But our neshama, our soul, comes to this world, starts as a baby, and works his whole life in order to go at the evening back to Hashem. So this pasuk speaks about the neshama as it goes through life. The other explanation is going to say the exact opposite, that this pasuk speaks about the neshama when it leaves this world. And that will be a beautiful explanation that will work on. And something very interesting a comment that Rabbi Ginsburg made when he taught this class, which I thought to share, is that every person should try to learn Yiddish, the language of they call our mother language, the Mama Lushan. Every person should try to learn Yiddish. Why is that? Because a lot of Torah was written in Yiddish, and if you learn it, then you're able to learn these things better. So very interesting. I have a couple questions about that I thought to ask Rav Ginsburg. Maybe I should do that. But in any case, there's an explanation about this pasuk in the previous Rebbe of Chabad, his teachings in Yiddish, and in this explanation, he speaks about the different, what we spoke about, the different explanations of this pasuk, how our soul goes down to this world and what happens when we go up. Before that, this whole class that we're discussing that Rabbi Ginsburg gave, he gave at the time of wedding. He said that there is a time in the middle of life that a person goes through this whole process again. Meaning what happens, you can have a very sweet childhood. Okay, a person works very hard. He starts as a baby, then he learns to crawl, and he learns to speak, and he works very hard. And when he achieves it, when is he at the top of his world? Around the 20s. He's young, he's on the one hand, he's young, on the other hand, he can already have a driver license and start doing things. So he's energetic, but he has the ability to do. So this is the perfect time. And what do we do at this time? We start over. Getting married is doing this whole process over again. You're starting, a person who's single is going through one process of life, and then he stops that process and goes into another process of life, the process of getting married. But the beauty of this process is that it has this, both sides, the achievement of being married and the process of starting to be a married person at the same time. Meaning you have the, usually what happens is a person is born, or in any process that a person starts, he's into it, and then eventually he's able to see the rewards from it. In a wedding, you can see the rewards as you're starting, which is very nice. Adei Arev. Arev could mean evening in a simple translation, but it could also mean something very sweet. Arev. So you can have the sweetness of being married at the same time as you're having the problems and the troubles of getting used to this new status of being a married person, which has a lot more responsibilities, etc. But this is another process of going down from your level, meaning a person can't achieve. We know in this generation, it's really problematic that they really have this fight. Should I be a single person that has the ability to achieve much more, or should I put myself in the problems of being married? It is a question for people, unfortunately. But for us as Jews and as As we learn from Torah, it's not even a question. A person is brought to this world in order to be married, and have children and have a family. It's part of the process. Yes, it makes you be less successful, quote unquote, that you could be as a single person, but you have to go to that level in order to achieve much more down the road. That's the basic concept. But as Rabbi Ginsburg brings out, that down the road of being married also comes upon at the same time that when you're married, you can also enjoy it from day one. In any case, we're going to the explanation of this pasuk, and in the explanation, it's brought. I would have thought that when you're looking at this pasuk, as two types of work. That's what, when I say I mean Rabbi Ginsburg teaches us that he would have thought that the first type, when a person goes to his work, that means in general working for the public service, and then his private work, his labor is different. They are until he's again, we said that there's evening and pleasure, but the other word of arev could also mean to mix. To be mixed with something. So could mean that you're being involved in the public in order to be, you're getting mixed with the people. You're doing work in this world. A person comes to this world to get mixed with everybody and to help out, to the point that some people are very upset at you because you're trying to do good things. That's what I would have thought, but he teaches us something different. He teaches us that there's two levels. There's the higher level and the full level, and then there's the personal level. On the regular level, what we have to do, and this is something that we're gonna look into, the statement that the Rebbe would say is that you have to lahagbir hatzura ala chomer, which means to make the shape be over the matter. Or if we want to explain it in our words, I'll say that the spiritual should be controlling the physical. So there's a beautiful story about that. The story is that an older lady from Tel Aviv went to the Rebbe, and being an old lady, she felt like a Jewish mother, and she said to the Rebbe that you're not taking care of yourself. She felt like almost he was her child, and you're not taking care of yourself. You're not eating well. You're not sleeping well. It's not good. So the Rebbe answered her, and she told this to Rabbi Ginsburg. The Rebbe answered her that his whole idea is to put shape over matter. If we think for a moment what he was telling her, he wasn't telling her, oh, I'm not eating in order to break my body. Chas v'shalom. That's not the way we Hasidim do. He was telling her that by me being involved in the spiritual, I'm elevating my physical world. People would say that after a whole night that the Rebbe would give shiurim, or the Rebbe would accept people, after the whole night, it would seem like he slept the whole night. He would seem awake and had the energy of a person that slept the whole night. Why is that? Because that was his concept, to make the spiritual affect your physical being. And we know that today, by different researchers, it's very much proven that a spiritual level affects the physical level. You can't disconnect them. Now again, we said that there's two types of work. Again, we'll say the pasuk again. The pasuk that we're looking into is that a man goes out to his work and to do his labor until nightfall. Adere. Yetze adam lepo'alo u'la'avodato adei arev. That's the pasuk that we're looking into. So the explanation is that there's two types of work. There's the general work that we're all part of, and then there's the labor work, our part of the work, which is individualized. So what is the general work? The general work, as we're saying, is the spirituality, is in general keeping Torah and mitzvos. As we say, doing the right thing. And what we just explained is that when you do the right thing properly, when you connect to spirituality, to Torah and mitzvot in a simple way, then you're elevating yourself. And that allows you to be a light to the world. But that's only the general way of working. Then there's my private labor. So for example, some people are supposed to read one thing, and other people are supposed to read. By read, I mean learn one thing in order to teach or in order to do any type of work. And other people are not going to, meaning each person has his individual work. General work, for example, could mean praying. Every Jew is supposed to wake up in the morning and pray to Hashem. That's a general type of work. Yes, it can elevate you, it can bring you to a higher level, but it's not necessarily individualized. What is individualized? Individualized work is what you're supposed to specifically do. For example, a person can be a shaliach somewhere. He could be sent by the Rebbe to somewhere, to a different country or a different place, or within his place to do something versus another. One person is meant to be a teacher, the other person is meant to do business, the other person is meant to do different type of chasadim, of charities of different kind. Every person is supposed to have his own individual work. So that work requires you to connect to a Rebbe, to connect to someone that is on a higher level that would show you the path of your individual work. So now, what is a day Erev? We said at the end of the pasuk is until the evening. What does that mean? So the easiest explanation, there will be three explanations for this. The easiest explanation is before it's too late. A person needs to do his work, whether it's general work, doing Torah and mitzvot, or whether it's personalized work, before it's too late. This world is on a time frame. You gotta get a certain amount of work done in a certain amount of time. And if you don't do what you're supposed to do in that time, you can, as they say, miss the boat. And a person is supposed to be focused and understand that every day is his last, in the concept that you don't know when your time is up, and you need to make sure, and we spoke about this last week, you need to focus your time. You need to make every day count, because this world is on the clock, as they say. Now, what is the next explanation? So in general, we said that the pasuk could be explained as the soul going into this world, and it could also be explained as the world to come. That a person does work in this world, and it affects him in the world to come, which is very interesting. It's a phenomenal thing to think about and to contemplate on, that whatever you do in this world is going to be the thing that you will work on in the world to come. To me, it's a very powerful statement. A person should think about it. Many people, unfortunately, do a job that they don't like. They're thinking, okay, then, I work for 30 years in this world, and then 30, 35, whatever amount of time it takes them, and then, I go on a pension. But if they would know that the work that you did in this world, let's say you're a salesman for a company, you should know that in the world to come, in the true world, that's what you're going to be working on. This will be the work that will go with you. Do you really want to do that? I think it puts a lot of emphasis on what a person does in this world. Obviously, the physical could change. Someone does with this product or that product, but the concept stays. That whatever you did in this world goes with you. Let's say, for example, you have a yeshiva, you're learning in a specific institution. You should know that that institution has a branch in the world to come, and you're going to learn in that branch. So if you're learning, let's say, for example, we're together in this Zoom class, and in the world to come, you can sign up for this Zoom class, the same concept. Now, again, obviously, it's not one-to-one. That would be funny and non-relevant, but it conceptually, it does work out this way. We also see it in Gemara. We can really dwell on it. We don't have time to go into it in much depth, but But that's conceptually, that's what happens. And we spoke about various things that this affects. So whatever you do in this world, you will continue doing it in the world to come. There's a famous story about Rabbi Sasso that we'll say it very shortly because it's a long and beautiful story, that he went to, when he passed away, and we'll say it very quickly, he jumped to Gehenna. He jumped right down there and went to the worst people in the lowest level of hell. You go into those level, and he said, I need to get these people out. And they came to him. It was a long story. And says, why? He said, because that's what I did in this world. This world, I dealt with many Jews that were incarcerated in different pidyon shvuim in different parts of this world. And the same thing here. I'm dealing with Jews that are in jail and in a very bad place, and I want to get them out. And he was granted that. He was able to get people out of Gehenna. It's the same concept. Whatever you do in this world, you're going to continue doing that. It has a lot of inner part to it. So again, what are the explanations? Explanation number one is that you should do things in this world before it's too late. Should get things done. This world is on the clock. Explanation number two, that in the world to come, you take what you do in this world and you elevate it and you move it on. You do what you do in this world, obviously at a higher level, but you take what you have in this world and you bring it up. And it's very important to know that. It makes your whole work in this world be more meaningful. If you're working very hard to raise a family, okay, you have a lot of kids that many times are giving you a lot of headaches. Okay, you should know that in the world to come, you'll be able to do the same type of work of raising a family. If you're working very hard to support Jews, to give tzedakah, to give charity, to be kind to people, you work very hard to smile. You should know that you'll bring a lot of smile and pleasure in the world to come. So that's the second one. But as part of the second explanation, or maybe just to clarify a little bit more before we go into the third one, maybe I mixed up the second and the third. In the second explanation, I'll explain it again. In the second explanation, the concept is that Adei Arev, that in the evening you'll get better, is that even in this world, you'll be doing better at the end. And this is something we tell everybody, that starting is very hard. Kol ha'atchalot kashot. Starting is always very hard, but at the end, it will be more pleasurable. It will be fine. You will gain something from this world, whether it's in this world or in the time of Mashiach. You will gain something. You'll be able to see fruits from what you did. That's the second explanation. The third one is what we just said, that in Olam Haba, even in the next world, you'll be able to gain from what you did in this world. And again, the pasuk, the verse that we're trying to learn, talks about going and doing our work in this world, and why it's so important. Okay, let's see how much time we have. We have a little bit of time. I want to say one more thing. We spoke about the number 8. So Rav Ginsburg teaches us a little bit about numbers, and we'll say it very shortly, that the number 7 refers to this world. It could be endless, but it's within this world. Okay, this world is built on the 7. There's 7 days in this world and tremendous amounts of 7s. The number 10 is more the spiritual world. We know that the Sfirot are 10 Sfirot. The spiritual world has 10. So what is the number 8? The 8th day that we spoke about and the special day. 8 is being within this world and out of this world at the same time. The ability to have this world and be out of this world at the same time. Where's that ability? That ability shows itself in many places. For example, a Rebbe. Okay, when we go to a tzaddik, to a Rabbi, we go to him because he's able to be in this world. We can talk to him, but he's also out of this world at the same time. So that's the kind of, where do we see it in the 8th day of from Pesach? In the 8th day, they had the splitting of the sea. It was in this world, but it was a miracle, something completely out of this world. And We know that the song of the splitting of the sea, Az Yashir, Az numerically is 1 Aleph and Zayin, 1/7. That's the concept of Shmona. Shmona is the same letters as Neshama, as a soul, which is out of this world that comes to this world. We know that there's the 8 kings. The number 8 in every parasha, the 8th parasha of every Chumash, speaks about miraculous things to do with number 8, and Rav Ginsburg goes into that a little bit. So just in general, I wanted to bring the idea of the number 7, 8, and 10. Now I see that there's a bunch of questions on the chat. Let me try to see if I can try to answer some of them. So the first question is about Gehenna. Very good question, very interesting. So the question is that if a person does something they don't like in this world, isn't it like harsh to tell them that you're going to have to do the same thing in the world to come? So there's a couple of answers that I could try to answer. Obviously, the simplest answer is that this is, we're reading from Torah, so this is true. How it comes into place, we have to look into, but the simplest answer is it is like that. But if we want to dive into it a little bit deeper, I could say that within a person's job, within what a person does, he has the ability to elevate it or to lower it. Yes, sometimes in this world, a person does something he completely dislikes, but the way he looks at it is his job, meaning, let's differentiate. Let's try to give an example. Let's say a person is working at a factory. Okay, working at a factory is not something that necessarily he had a choice. He has to support his family, let's say, and there was no other work, let's say. Again, we're trying to get an example. So he has to do what he has to do. He's in the factory. But that's not his job. His job is, what is your outlook towards it? Are you coming to work with simcha every day? As an explanation, as an example. If you're bringing simcha, in the world to come, the factory is not going to come with you. But the fact that you walked in happy every morning, that does come with you. Your mindset does come with you. Your learning does come with you. How you reacted with your fellow people, that does come with you. Meaning, the work that we're referring to is not the physical work. The same thing about the question whether if you're a doctor or a lawyer, are you going to be a doctor or a lawyer up there? No, there's no need for doctors and lawyers, even though it makes for good jokes. But there's no need for doctors and lawyers. What there is a need for is a person that's helping. If you enjoy helping people and you do it as being a good doctor, then you will continue helping people in the world to come. Your neshama will take this work. Now, the work is not the physical matter. The physical matter we spoke about in the second explanation, the one that I got confused with, that your work will be elevated. So, for example, a doctor will find out how in the Geulah, in the world, in the redemption, not in the world to come, in this world, when at the time of Mashiach, his job will have a much higher effect. People will not get sick. So how do I enjoy my job as a doctor? You will see. So that's the second explanation. But the third explanation is the way you look at the job, the way you act, the way you work, your work in this world, that's what's going to affect. It's going to affect both in this world and in the world to come. All right. Let's see the next question. So a person asks, what if I like doing something? I have a hobby of going to, for example, to see a beach or in the sea. What is that hobby going to have? Yes, absolutely. That hobby has an inner spiritual part to it. And that part will continue going with you in the world to come and in the end of this world, as we discussed. Okay, so I see that we have about 5 more minutes. If there's any other questions, we can try to answer it now. You can put on the chat if you're not able to unmute. I'll try to help with that. I'm not sure how technically it works. But again, what we tried to do, and I know it wasn't as clear as I would like it to be, But what we try to do is speak about a pasuk that talks about a person's work and how both his neshama goes to this world and goes out of this world, how it has effect on him up until the evening, which could also mean up until it's pleasurable, both in this world and in the world to come. Okay. Any questions? If not, we may end it here, or we may go into one more subject. We had a whole shiur in this week's Wonders about emunah that I really wanted to dive into. The 9 times in Torah that the word emunah, faith, is brought down in that simple way, emunah. And I really wanted to kind of talk about it a little bit, but we're not going to have time. So if there's any other questions, we'll answer. If not, we'll continue. Bezrat Hashem. I don't know if there'll be time next week. Look for the advertisement. Hopefully this week, next week, it'll be accurate with Pesach and everything. We'll have to see how we can be prepared for it. But again, we should prepare for Pesach. We'll speak about Pesach a little bit because I see that there's no questions and we have a few more minutes to discuss something. We said that Pesach is the time where HaKadosh Baruch Hu redeems us, where God redeems us. So what is our work? So very interesting that the work to Pesach, what do we do for Pesach? What is the work that we do for Pesach? We clean. We work very hard to clean everything. We clean our home, we clean everywhere we're going to go, everywhere we went, we either clean or we sell it to a non-Jew. We get rid of everything that comes, all of our baggages, we take out. Anything, again, what do we clean for? We clean for chametz. Chametz in Chassidut is explained more as our ego. We clean that out and we allow our HaKadosh Baruch Hu to redeem us. So that's something we should all connect to in this time. Whenever we're cleaning, there's a beautiful song that Rav Ginsburg taught us, and he would really cry. Very few times that I've seen him cry, but this song he would cry with. Echad mi yodea, who knows one? I'm sure people heard this song. Beautiful song that a person can connect to when they're cleaning, about Hashem and our fathers and our mothers, etc., etc. But the goal is when we clean, we're Moser HaNefesh, we're letting go, we're putting our physical labor in order to let go of our ego and to allow HaKadosh Baruch Hu to redeem us in chesed v'rachamim, with kindness and mercy. So may everyone have an easy time cleaning for Pesach and connecting. We are gifted this generation to connect to the wonders. We didn't say that Refuah Shalema to our Rav Yitzchak Feibish ben Breina Malka, our friend Bluma Bat Ginen Del Tova, my son Levia Uvia ben Ayala wasn't feeling good today. My sister, Bezrat Hashem, she should have a baby soon. Bracha Bat Miriam, and also our friend Avraham Shimon ben Milka. He had a surgery. So everyone should connect and should be redeemed. We know that on Mount Sinai, all the people that had any type of illness, the illness went away. If a person was blind, he could see. If a person was walking not straight, he could walk straight. Everything went away when we let HaKadosh Baruch Hu redeem us. So Pesach Kasher V'Sameach, and cleaning for Pesach easy, and Kol Tuv.